The first thing Junwoo heard was the sound of a suitcase rolling across the floor. Not footsteps, not concern, just wheels. He lay frozen on his bed, his body useless from the neck down, staring at the ceiling as his breathing machine hummed beside him. His voice came out broken. "Hyun, please, I need help turning. It hurts." In the living room, his wheelchair sat untouched, exactly where she had left it that morning. Hyun didn't answer. She stood by the front door of their Gangnam apartment, designer bag on her shoulder, freshly done nails gripping the handle of a luxury suitcase. 6 months ago, she had promised him she would never leave. 6 months after the accident, she was already late for her new life. Junwoo called her name again, louder this time. She didn't even look back. What Junwoo didn't know, what would shatter him completely, was that his wife wasn't just stepping out for air. She was walking out forever. And the only person who would come back for him was the black, plus-sized maid everyone else in that house treated like she was invisible. This is not a story about romance. It's a story about abandonment, dignity, and the kind of love that shows up after the world decides you're no longer worth staying for. Before we go further, I need you to do something. If you're watching this from anywhere in the world, Lagos, London, Los Angeles, Mumbai, Manila, Mexico City, drop a comment right now telling me where you're from. And hit that subscribe button for love and tension, because what you're about to witness will shake you to your core. This isn't just a story, this is a mirror. And some of you are going to see yourselves in Hyun's choice. Some of you are going to see yourselves in Junwoo's pain. And some of you, the ones who've carried burdens nobody thanked you for, you're going to see yourselves in what comes next. 6 months earlier, Junwoo had been different, completely different. He was a mid-level architect at a respected firm in Seoul, Kim & Associates, specializing in sustainable residential design. Not wealthy, but comfortable. The kind of comfortable where you could take your wife to a nice restaurant twice a month, where you could start seriously looking at apartments with an extra bedroom for the children you were planning. Hyun had loved him for his gentle nature, his artistic vision, the way he'd sketch buildings on napkins during dinner dates at the small Italian restaurant in Itaewon where they'd had their first date 3 years ago. He would draw her dream house, traditional Korean architecture blended with modern sustainability, solar panels hidden in hanok-style rooflines, ondel heating powered by geothermal energy. For us, he'd say, sliding the napkin across the table, for our future. Their apartment had been filled with laughter then. Hyun would model her latest fashion purchases. She worked in marketing for a cosmetics company, had an eye for trends, loved the transformation of putting together the perfect outfit, while Junwoo applauded from the couch, calling her his runway queen. They talked about children, 2, maybe 3, about buying a house in the suburbs, somewhere with good schools, about growing old together, retiring to Jeju Island, Junwoo designing one final house just for them. Then came the accident. March 15th, a Tuesday. Junwoo was driving home from a site visit in Bundang. The project was going well, a sustainable housing complex that would be his first major credit as lead designer. He was texting Hyun at a red light, stopping for your favorite tteokbokki on the way home. The drunk driver ran the red light at 80 kilometers per hour. The impact folded Junwoo's sedan like paper. A shattered spine, 4 surgeries over 3 months, vertebrae fused with titanium rods, nerves severed beyond repair. The diagnosis, delivered by a neurosurgeon with kind eyes and terrible news, permanent paralysis from the waist down. T10 complete spinal cord injury, the medical terminology that meant Junwoo would never walk again, would never feel his legs again, would never live independently again. Junwoo came home in a wheelchair 5 months ago, and Hyun's smile began to fade like a photograph left in the sun. Day by day, brightness draining away until nothing remained but the ghost of who she used to be. At first, she tried. She really did try. She helped with physical therapy appointments, driving him to the rehabilitation center 3 times a week, sitting in the waiting room, scrolling through her phone while Jun-woo struggled to master a wheelchair, to transfer from bed to chair, to accept that recovery no longer meant walking. It meant learning to live from a seated position for the rest of his life. She learned to operate the mechanical lift that moved him from bed to chair. She smiled when relatives visited, played the role of devoted wife, accepted their praise for her sacrifice with appropriate humility. But when the relatives left, the smile disappeared, like someone had flipped a switch. The truth was simple and brutal. Hyun had not signed up for this. She had signed up for the architect who sketched houses on napkins, not the man who needed help using the bathroom. She had signed up for the future they'd planned, not this nightmare alternate reality where she was 32 years old and felt like she was 70, exhausted, trapped, watching her youth evaporate while her husband's body failed. Hyun stood in front of the bathroom mirror, applying lipstick with a steady hand. MAC Ruby Woo, the red that always made her feel powerful. Her reflection showed a beautiful woman, high cheekbones inherited from her mother, flawless skin maintained with a 10-step skincare routine, expensive highlights in her hair that cost more than their monthly grocery budget. She looked like someone headed to an important meeting, not someone about to abandon her disabled husband. But maybe that was the point. Maybe if she looked put together enough, professional enough, certain enough, she could convince herself this was the right decision, a business decision, a survival decision. From the bedroom, "Hyun, can you help me to the bathroom? I've been holding it for an hour. Please, it's getting urgent." She capped the lipstick with a sharp click, checked her phone. Her friend Minji had texted, "Coffee at 2? You can tell me everything. I found you a great apartment listing in Gangnam. 1 bedroom, perfect for starting fresh." Hyun typed back, "Make it 3. I need to pack a few more things." 3 dots appeared immediately. Minji typing. Then, "You're really doing this? Today? Today. What about Junwoo?" Hyun stared at the question on her screen. What about Junwoo? What about the man who couldn't feed himself without shaking, who cried silently when he thought she couldn't hear, who apologized every single day for being a burden as if he'd chosen to be hit by a drunk driver? She typed, "His brother will handle it," deleted it. Typed, "I can't save him by drowning with him," deleted it. Finally sent, "I have to save myself first." Minji's response was a single emoji, the praying hands, support without judgment. That was all Hyun needed. "Hyun?" Junwoo's voice again, weaker now, embarrassed. "Please, I really need, I'm getting ready for work," she called back, her voice flat, emotionless, the voice she'd perfected over the past month as she'd slowly detached herself from this reality. "It's Saturday." Silence stretched between them like a chasm. Hyun picked up her suitcase. She'd packed it last night while Junwoo slept, moving through the apartment like a ghost, selecting only what mattered: clothes, documents, jewelry, photographs from before the accident, and walked to the bedroom doorway. Junwoo lay in the hospital bed they'd installed where their regular bed used to be, the bed where they'd made love and planned their future and fallen asleep intertwined. Now it was just another piece of medical equipment, all rails and adjustment buttons and waterproof mattresses. His legs useless beneath the thin blanket, his face gaunt from the 40 pounds he'd lost since the accident, his eyes desperate with hope that she might stay, that she might change her mind, that love might somehow be enough to overcome the crushing reality of their new life. "I'm leaving," she said. No emotion, just fact. The way you'd tell someone you were going to the store. Junwoo's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, disbelief, desperate hope that he'd misunderstood, and finally, sickeningly, understanding. For how long? Permanently. The word landed like a bullet. "You can't," Junwoo said, but his voice had no strength behind it. 6 months in bed had weakened everything, including his ability to fight for himself. "Hyun, you can't just..." "Watch me," She turned to go, pulling the suitcase behind her, its wheels clicking against the hardwood floor that Jun-woo would never walk on again. "We took vows." His shout came out as a wheeze, his lungs weak from lying down for months. "In sickness and in health, you promised, in front of your parents, my parents, God, everyone, you promised." Hyun spun back, and for the first time, real emotion cracked through her perfect facade like lightning through porcelain, her face contorted with months of suppressed rage and resentment and exhaustion. "I promised to marry a man, Jun-woo, not this, not a burden, not someone who needs help eating, bathing, using the toilet like a child, not someone whose entire existence revolves around medications and bowel schedules and pressure sore prevention." She took a shaking breath. "I'm 32 years old. I'm supposed to be living my life, building my career, having children while I still can, not playing nurse to someone who can't even—" She stopped herself, but the damage was done. The truth hung in the air between them, ugly and undeniable. Jun-woo's face crumpled like paper. Tears streaked down his cheeks, and he made no move to wipe them away because, what was the point? I didn't choose this. I didn't choose to be hit by a drunk driver. I didn't choose to be paralyzed. I didn't choose any of this, Hyun. Do you think I want to live like this? Do you think I enjoy needing help to exist? Neither did I choose it." Her voice went cold again, the emotion draining away as quickly as it had appeared. She'd gotten good at that, feeling everything intensely for 30 seconds, then shutting it off completely. It was the only way to survive. Your brother can check on you or hire someone. There are services for this. Home health care, caregivers. The insurance will cover most of it. You're my wife. I was your wife. Past tense. Hyun adjusted her bag on her shoulder. Now I'm just tired. So tired I can't remember what it feels like to not be tired. Tired of the smell of antiseptic and urine and decay. Tired of watching you give up a little more every day. Tired of dying alongside you. So you're just gonna let me die alone? You're not dying, Jun-woo. You're just not living the life we planned, and I can't watch that anymore. I can't be the reason you have hope that's never going to materialize. It's kinder this way, for both of us. She walked to the front door, wheels clicking like a countdown against the hardwood floor. "Hyun!" His voice broke completely, dissolving into desperate sobs. "Please don't do this. I love you. We can figure this out. I'll get better. The doctor said there's new treatments, stem cell therapy, exoskeleton technology. I'll walk again, I promise. I'll be the man I was. Just please don't leave me." The door clicked shut. The apartment fell silent except for the steady hum of the breathing machine and Jun-woo's ragged sobs that gradually dissolved into silent heaving as he ran out of air, out of hope, out of everything except pain. Jun-woo lay in that bed for 4 hours, unable to move himself, unable to reach his phone, which Ha-yoon had left on the dresser just out of reach. Accidentally or intentionally, he'd never know. Calling out periodically until his voice gave out entirely, reduced to a whisper, then nothing. The pressure point on his left hip developed into a stage 2 pressure sore because he couldn't shift his weight. His bladder, already urgently full when Ha-yoon left, eventually emptied involuntarily, soaking the bed, adding humiliation to abandonment. When his brother Min-ho finally arrived that evening, Ha-yoon had texted him at 1 p.m. "Jun-woo needs help. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. I've left information about his medications and care schedule on the kitchen table." He found Jun-woo in the exact same position, tears dried in salty tracks on his face, eyes staring at nothing, lying in his own waste, a man reduced to his most basic and shameful vulnerabilities. "Hyung!" Min-ho breathed, using the Korean term for older brother, though Jun-woo was only older by 18 months. "Oh, Hyung, I'm here now." He immediately set to work. Jun-woo had taught him the basics over the past months, during the times when Ha-yoon claimed she needed a break, needed a few hours to herself, needed to remember what it felt like to be human. Min-ho had learned how to operate the mechanical lift, how to clean and change Jun-woo, how to check for pressure sores, how to administer medications. It took 40 minutes to get Jun-woo cleaned, changed, into fresh clothing, repositioned properly with pillows supporting his pressure points. Min-ho worked efficiently but gently, talking the whole time about nothing, his kids, his work, the weather, filling the silence so Jun-woo wouldn't have to. When it was done, when Jun-woo was clean and dry and as comfortable as possible, Min-ho made tea. Strong Korean green tea, the kind their mother used to make. He pulled up a chair beside the bed. "She's gone," Min-ho whispered. His voice was destroyed from hours of crying. "She's really gone, Min-ho. She looked at me like I was something rotting that needed to be thrown away, and she left." Min-ho's jaw clenched. He had opinions about Ha-yoon, strong opinions he'd kept to himself for months because what good would it do? But now, "I'm sorry, Hyung," Min-ho said quietly, and he meant it. "I know you loved her. I still do." The admission came out broken. "I still love her, even now, even after—" His voice cracked. "What's wrong with me?" "Nothing is wrong with you. Love doesn't stop because someone proves they don't deserve it. That's not how hearts work." Min-ho squeezed his brother's shoulder carefully, mindful of pressure points. "But she made her choice, and now we deal with reality." Min-ho stayed that night, sleeping on the couch, and the next night, and the next. But on the fourth day, his wife Ji-won called. "The kids are asking for you. Minji has a fever. I need you home." Min-ho had his own family, his own life, his own responsibilities. He couldn't be there all the time, and they both knew it. "We need to hire someone," Min-ho said, looking through the home healthcare information Ha-yoon had left. "Professional help. The insurance will cover it. You need someone who can be here, who knows what they're doing." Jun-woo stared at the ceiling. "I don't want a stranger seeing me like this. Hyung, you don't have a choice anymore." The truth of it settled over them both like ash. Before we continue, if this story is hitting you emotionally, if you know someone who's been abandoned when they needed love most, if you've ever been the one left behind, take 2 seconds to like this video. Your click tells me these stories matter. It tells me that people understand what real pain looks like. Now, let's meet the woman who would change everything. The home care agency sent 3 candidates. The first, a young woman named Soo-jin, quit after 2 days. "I'm sorry," she told the agency supervisor, her voice shaking. "It's too depressing. He barely speaks. He just lies there. I can't handle the sadness." The second, an older woman named Mrs. Park, lasted a week before claiming a family emergency that was probably invented. She'd been professional but cold, efficient but resentful, like every task was a burden she resented having to bear. The third was Bracy Phillip. She arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning in late April, a large black woman in her late 40s with natural hair pulled back in a simple bun, wearing practical navy blue scrubs and carrying a worn leather bag that looked like it had traveled the world. No makeup except a hint of lip balm, no jewelry except a small silver cross necklace that looked like it had been worn so long it had shaped itself to her collarbone. Min-ho answered the door, exhausted from another night on Jun-woo's couch, his clothes wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. "Miss Phillip? Bracy is fine, honey." Her voice was deep, warm, with a slight southern accent that spoke of Alabama or Georgia, somewhere far from Seoul. "I'm here for Jun-woo." Something about the way she said his name, not the patient, or your brother, or the client, made Min-ho relax slightly. She said it like he was a person, not a problem. "He's in the living room," Min-ho said, stepping aside. "I should warn you, he doesn't talk much. He's given up, I think." "We'll see about that." Bracy stepped inside, her eyes taking in everything, the medical equipment, the adjustments to furniture, the faint smell of antiseptic that no amount of cleaning could fully eliminate, the photographs on the wall of a younger Jun-woo, standing, smiling, whole. Jun-woo was in the living room in his wheelchair, positioned by the window, staring out at the rain. He didn't turn when they entered, hadn't turned for anyone in days. "Jun-woo," Bracy said, walking around to face him directly. She didn't crouch or bend down to his level, as if disability had somehow made him a child. She stood at her full height, 5'9", solid, present, and looked at him directly, human to human. "My name is Bracy Phillip. I'm going to be helping you for a while. Is that all right with you?" He finally looked at her. His eyes were hollow, sunken, the eyes of someone who'd stopped sleeping because what was the point? Does it matter if it's all right? Yes. That single word said with such absolute conviction made him blink. For the first time in 2 weeks, since Hyun left, someone was asking him for something his permission. Someone was treating him like he had autonomy, like his opinion mattered, like he was still a human being capable of making choices. "Okay," he whispered. Bracy nodded once, a gesture that somehow conveyed respect and acknowledgement and the beginning of trust. "Good. Now, I'm going to learn your routine, what you need, what you like, what makes you comfortable. But first," she pulled up a chair and sat down, not hovering, not rushing, just present. "First, we're going to have some tea, and you're going to tell me one thing you're grateful for today." "Just one. Could be small." Junwoo almost laughed. Almost. The sound died in his throat. "There's nothing. The sun came up. That's one. I didn't want it to. The rain is watering the plants outside. That's 2. I don't care about plants. Your brother loves you enough to sleep on your couch for a week. That's 3. Bracy leaned forward slightly. "You're still breathing. That's 4. I wish I wasn't." Bracy was quiet for a moment, studying him. Then, "My grandmother used to say that the sun don't ask permission to rise. It just does its job. Some days we're grateful, some days we're not. Some days we wish it would just stay dark, but it keeps showing up anyway." She stood. "I'll make the tea. You sit there and try to think of one thing. Just one. I'll give you 5 minutes." She walked to the kitchen, leaving Junwoo alone with an impossible assignment. One thing to be grateful for when his wife had abandoned him, when his body had betrayed him, when every day was an exercise in humiliation and pain. He stared out at the rain. 5 minutes later, when Bracy returned with tea, Korean green tea, she'd found it in the cupboard, made it properly without asking how, Junwoo said quietly, "You asked my permission." "What's that?" "You asked if it was all right with me. No one's asked me anything in months. Everyone just does things to me, for me, around me. But you asked." Bracy set the tea down carefully on the table beside him. "Well, that's because it's your life, Junwoo. Disability doesn't erase that. So yes, I ask. I'll always ask. And if you say no to something I suggest, I'll respect that. This is your home, your body, your life. I'm just here to help you live it." Junwoo felt something crack in his chest. Not break. Something had already broken. This was different. This was the first tiny fissure in the armor of hopelessness he'd built around himself. "Thank you," he whispered. "You're welcome. Now drink your tea before it gets cold. Then we'll figure out the rest." The first week, Bracy learned everything. She learned that Junwoo needed help every 2 hours to shift position to prevent bed sores. The stage 2 pressure sore on his hip was already developing into something worse, requiring careful wound care and constant vigilance. She learned the precise angles his body needed to be positioned, which pillows worked best, how to use the mechanical lift safely and efficiently. She learned that he needed assistance with all bathroom functions, which humiliated him to the point of tears the first few times. He'd apologize constantly. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. This is disgusting. I'm disgusting." And Bracy would simply say, "Bodies are bodies, Junwoo. We all need the same things. Nothing to apologize for." She learned that he needed help eating. Though his hands worked fine, tremors from medication and muscle loss made holding utensils difficult, and he had no appetite anyway, forcing down food because Bracy insisted, not because he wanted to live. She learned that he woke up screaming sometimes, nightmares about the accident, about Hyun, about falling and never hitting the ground. She learned that he'd been an architect and that his sketchbooks still sat on a shelf collecting dust because he couldn't bear to look at them. Bracy handled it all with quiet efficiency and zero judgment. She never rushed, even when tasks took 3 times as long as they should, never sighed with impatience when Junwoo needed to rest halfway through getting dressed, never looked at her phone while helping him, giving him her full attention as if he were the only person in the world who mattered. She treated each hellish task, no matter how medical, how intimate, how degrading it might feel to Junwoo, like it mattered, like he mattered, like caring for another human being was the most important work in the world. On day 4, while helping him into the shower chair, Junwoo finally spoke more than was strictly necessary. "Why are you being so nice to me?" "I'm not being nice. I'm being decent. There's a difference." Junwoo blinked water out of his eyes. "What's the difference?" "Nice is about making people feel good. Decent is about treating people right, whether they feel good or not. Nice is a feeling. Decent is a choice." She adjusted the water temperature, testing it against her wrist the way you'd test a baby's bottle. Most people confuse the two. Most people can't even do decent anymore. Most people haven't learned what I learned. She handed him the soap, positioned so he could reach it himself, maintaining whatever small independence was possible. "My grandmother raised 6 kids alone after my grandfather died. Black woman in Alabama in the 1960s. She cleaned white people's houses during the day, took in their laundry at night. She was exhausted every single day of her life. Bone tired, soul tired." Junwoo listened, really listened. The first time in weeks he'd focused on anything outside his own misery. "But she used to say, 'Bracy girl, tired is just a feeling. Love is an action. You choose the action even when the feeling runs dry. You choose it when every bone in your body is screaming to quit, because that's when it becomes real love, when you choose it anyway." Bracy's voice was steady, matter-of-fact, like she was describing the weather. "Your wife chose based on feeling. The feeling ran dry, so she left. I choose based on action. The action doesn't change no matter how I feel." It was the first time anyone had acknowledged Ha-yoon without pitying him about it, without tiptoeing around the wound. "Do you think she was wrong?" Junwoo asked quietly. "To leave?" Bracy considered this carefully. "I think she made a choice. Whether it was wrong or right isn't for me to say. What I know is this. She chose easy over hard. She chose escape over endurance. That tells me who she is. It also tells me who you need around you now." "Who's that?" "People who choose hard. People who show up when everything says to walk away. People who understand that love isn't something you fall into. It's something you climb toward every single day, even when the mountain is steep and you're tired and you can't see the top." Weeks turned into months. Spring became summer, and Junwoo's apartment had air conditioning that barely worked, so Bracy bought fans with her own money and positioned them strategically to keep him comfortable. She arrived every morning at 7, rain or shine. She helped Junwoo with his morning routine: bathroom, shower every other day, dressing, transferring to the wheelchair. She made breakfast, learning his preferences. He liked his eggs slightly runny, his rice made in the traditional way, his kimchi not too spicy because his stomach couldn't handle it anymore. She kept the apartment immaculate, not obsessively but carefully, understanding that Junwoo's world had shrunk to these rooms, and he deserved for them to feel like a home, not a hospital. She supervised his physical therapy exercises, the ones designed not to help him walk again, that was impossible, but to maintain upper body strength, prevent contractures, keep his circulation going. She pushed him when he wanted to quit, backed off when he genuinely needed rest, developing an intuition for the difference. She learned his favorite foods and started cooking them, Korean dishes she'd never made before. She'd look up recipes online, call her friend who ran a Korean restaurant in Itaewon, practice until she got it right. Jjajangmyeon, samgyeopsal, tteokbokki, comfort foods from Junwoo's childhood that his mother used to make. She never talked excessively, but when she did speak, it was always substantial, real conversations, not the mindless chatter meant to fill silence. She told him about growing up in Alabama, about moving to Korea 12 years earlier after her husband died, about learning a new language and culture in her 40s, about what it meant to be a black woman in a country that sometimes stared, sometimes asked to touch her hair, sometimes treated her like a curiosity. Junwoo started looking forward to her arrival, not because he had feelings for her. He was still in love with the ghost of Ha-yoon, still checked his phone hoping for a text that never came, still sometimes called out Hyun when he woke up from nightmares before remembering, but because Bracey's presence meant he wasn't alone, meant someone saw him as human, not as a collection of needs and problems and medical interventions. One evening in June, during dinner, Jun-woo asked, "Do you have family besides your grandmother?" "I did. Husband passed 12 years ago. Heart attack. He was cooking breakfast and he just dropped." No sadness in her voice, just fact, the way you'd describe weather. "He was a good man, Army chaplain. Met him at Fort Benning when I was doing home care for veterans. We had 20 years together." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. We had 20 good years. Some people don't get even one." She set down her fork, looked at him directly. "We didn't have kids. Tried for years, but it wasn't in God's plan, I guess. That was hard. Spent a lot of years being angry about that, wondering why God gives children to people who don't want them and keeps them from people who do. What changed? Time, perspective, and my grandmother telling me that sometimes the plan isn't about what you want, it's about what you can give." Bracey sipped her water. She said, "Bracey girl, maybe you don't have children because you're supposed to care for everybody's children. Maybe your purpose is bigger than one family. Is that why you do this? To fill the void?" Bracey considered this carefully, the way she considered every question Jun-woo asked, taking him seriously, giving him real answers. "No, I do this because I'm good at it, because people need it, because it's honest work that makes a difference." She paused. "Not everything is about filling voids, Jun-woo. Sometimes it's just about showing up and doing what needs to be done. The void is still there. I just learned to work around it." "How?" "Same way you're learning. One day at a time. One choice at a time. Choosing to get up even when lying down seems easier. Choosing to care even when caring hurts. Choosing to believe that showing up matters even when you can't see the results." Jun-woo absorbed this. "Do you think I'll ever stop hurting?" "No," Bracey said, and the honesty was brutal but somehow comforting. "I think you'll learn to carry it better. I think the hurt will become part of you instead of all of you. I think one day you'll wake up and realize you went 5 minutes without thinking about what you lost, then 10 minutes, then an hour. The hurt doesn't leave, you just get stronger at carrying it." 3 months after Hyun left, she came back. It was a Saturday in July, the kind of humid summer day where Seoul shimmers with heat. Jun-woo was in physical therapy when he heard the key in the lock. She still had it, apparently, hadn't thought to return it, or maybe kept it deliberately as some kind of safety net. His heart jumped. Maybe she'd kept her key because she was coming back. Maybe she'd realized she'd made a mistake. Maybe she missed him. Maybe love had won after all. Maybe. Hyun walked in wearing a designer dress he'd never seen before. White linen that probably cost $1,000,000, something she'd bought in the past 3 months with money that wasn't going toward his medical care. Her hair was different, shorter, styled in a modern bob that looked expensive. She wore new sunglasses, designer brand, pushed up on her head. She looked healthy, radiant even. She looked like someone who'd been on vacation, not someone who'd abandoned her paralyzed husband 3 months ago. And she wasn't alone. A man followed her in. Tall, handsome, wearing an expensive suit despite the heat. Mid-30s, confident posture, the kind of man who'd never known real suffering. He put his hand on the small of Hyun's back with casual ownership, the gesture so familiar it was clear this wasn't new. Jun-woo's physical therapy resistance bands went slack in his hands. Bracey, who had been spotting Jun-woo during his exercises, helping him maintain balance while he worked on his upper body strength, slowly straightened up. Her face revealed nothing, but her body shifted almost imperceptibly, placing herself slightly between Jun-woo and the visitors. "Jun-woo," Hyun said, her voice bright and false, the tone she used to use with difficult clients at work. "You look, well, better than I expected, actually. This is Sang-woo, my fiancé." The word hung in the air like poison. Fiancé. 3 months. She'd been gone 3 months and already had a fiancé, which meant she was seeing him before she left, which meant, "We're here to pick up some of my things," Hyun continued, already walking toward the bedroom like this was perfectly normal, like she hadn't just detonated a bomb in the middle of Jun-woo's fragile recovery. "Some jewelry I forgot, a few dresses I want back. I won't be long. 15 minutes tops. Sang-woo gave Jun-woo an uncomfortable nod, the kind you'd give someone panhandling on the street, acknowledgement without engagement, then followed Ha-yoon into the bedroom like a loyal dog. Jun-woo sat frozen in his wheelchair, his face drained of all color. His breathing had gone shallow, rapid. His hands trembled violently on the resistance bands. "Breathe," Bracy said quietly, kneeling beside him so she could look him in the eye. "Jun-woo, breathe with me. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Come on." "She moved on," he whispered, his voice barely audible. She moved on like I never existed. 3 months. 3 months and she's engaged to someone else, which means she was probably, while I was in the hospital, while I was... Oh God, Bracy, was she cheating on me even before she left? From the bedroom, Ha-yoon's laugh echoed, light and carefree, the sound of someone who had successfully escaped a nightmare. Sang-woo's deeper voice responded with something Jun-woo couldn't make out. Then Ha-yoon laughed again. The sound cut through Jun-woo like a knife. "Don't listen," Bracy said firmly. "Look at me. Focus on me. She doesn't get to take your peace today. I don't have any peace to take. Then we'll build some, right now, you and me, starting with breathing." They breathed together, Bracy's steady presence anchoring Jun-woo to reality, keeping him from spinning out into panic or rage or despair. 10 minutes later, Ha-yoon emerged carrying 2 shopping bags full of her belongings. Sang-woo followed with a jewelry box. "Okay, I think that's everything," Ha-yoon said, checking her phone. "Oh, Jun-woo, I left the spare key on the kitchen counter. No point in me keeping it anymore. Min-ho can use it if needed." She was giving back her key, making the abandonment official, final. "Ha-yoon," Jun-woo's voice was stronger than he expected. "Did you—" He stopped, gathered courage. "Were you seeing him before you left?" Ha-yoon's expression flickered. Guilt. Then defensiveness, then a carefully constructed neutrality. "I don't think that's relevant anymore. It's relevant to me. Jun-woo, we're divorced now. The paperwork was finalized last week. What I do with my life, we're divorced?" His voice cracked. "You didn't even tell me? I had the papers delivered to Min-ho. I thought he would..." She waved her hand dismissively. "It doesn't matter. It's done. We've both moved on. I hope you can be happy for me." "Happy for me?" Jun-woo repeated the words like they were in a foreign language. "You want me to be happy that my wife, ex-wife, abandoned me when I was paralyzed, divorced me without telling me, and is now engaged to the man she was probably sleeping with while I was in the hospital, learning to use a catheter. That's what you want?" Sang-woo shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we should go." "Yes," Ha-yoon agreed quickly, moving toward the door. "Take care of yourself, Jun-woo. I'm glad you found good help." She glanced at Bracy with what might have been gratitude or might have been condescension, hard to tell, and then she was gone, again, this time taking her key, taking the last physical evidence of their marriage, leaving behind only the memory of who Jun-woo used to be, when he was whole enough to deserve her love. Pause here. If you've ever felt invisible to someone who promised to love you forever, if you've ever been discarded like you were nothing, if you've ever watched someone move on while you're still bleeding, comment, "I see you," below. Let's build a community that witnesses each other's pain. And subscribe to Love and Tension because this story's about to take a turn no one sees coming. After Ha-yoon left with her boxes and her new fiancé and her casual cruelty, Jun-woo didn't speak for the rest of the day. He refused dinner, pushed the bowl away when Bracy tried to feed him, refused his evening medications, turned his head away like a stubborn child. He just stared at the wall, his jaw clenched so tight Bracy could see the muscles jumping, grinding his teeth until she worried he'd crack them. At 8 p.m., Bracy found him trying to reach the bottle of sleeping pills on his nightstand. His useless legs made it impossible, but he was trying anyway, straining, reaching, his face red with effort and rage and desperation. "Jun-woo," Bracy's voice cut through his struggle. "I want to sleep," he said through gritted teeth, still reaching. "I want to sleep and not wake up. I want this to be over, all of it. The pain, the humiliation, the being left behind like garbage. Is that so much to ask? Just give me enough pills to..." "No." "Why not?" He finally looked at her, and his eyes were wild with pain, unhinged with it. "Why not, Bracy? Give me one good reason why I should keep living like this. Look at me. I'm useless. I'm half a man. I can't walk, can't work, can't even shit by myself. The woman I loved looked at me today like I was something she regretted not throwing away sooner. She moved on in 3 months. 3 months, and I'm still here in this prison of a body, and for what? So tell me, why should I stay?" Bracy pulled up a chair and sat down. She was quiet for a long time, so long that Junwoo's rage began to deflate into something more dangerous, hopelessness. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out an old photograph, its edges worn soft with age and handling. She held it out to Junwoo with steady hands. "This is my grandmother, Delilah Phillip, born 1935 in Mobile, Alabama, died in 2003 in Birmingham. This picture was taken in 1975, the year my grandfather died and left her with 6 kids under the age of 14, no money, and a house that was falling apart." Junwoo took the photo with shaking hands. The woman in it was strong-looking, broad-shouldered like Bracy, her skin dark, her eyes fierce and sad in equal measure. She wore a simple dress and an expression that said she'd survived things that should have killed her. "She had every reason to give up," Bracy continued, her voice steady but weighted with memory. "She was exhausted, she was broke, she was alone. Black woman in Alabama with 6 mouths to feed and nobody willing to hire her for anything but cleaning toilets and washing white people's dirty laundry. The welfare office treated her like scum. The church helped sometimes, but not enough. She had no education past 6th grade because her father pulled her out of school to work in the fields." Junwoo stared at the photograph. "She worked 3 jobs," Bracy said, "cleaning houses during the day, taking in laundry at night, and on weekends she'd sell tamales she made in her kitchen, going door to door in the black neighborhoods because white neighborhoods would call the police if they saw her coming. She slept 4 hours a night. Her hands were raw all the time from lye soap and bleach. Her back gave out when she was 47 from years of scrubbing floors on her knees." "That's terrible," Junwoo whispered. "That was survival," Bracy corrected. "And you know what she did? She got up every morning. She fed those kids, my mama and her 5 siblings. She made sure they had clean clothes for school, even if she had to wash them by hand at midnight. She worked, she prayed, she sang hymns while she scrubbed toilets because it reminded her she was human, not just a pair of hands. She cried at night when she thought we couldn't hear, but come morning, she was up again." Bracy's voice grew quieter. "I asked her once when I was 16 and thought I knew everything why she didn't just give up, why she didn't just walk into the Alabama River one night and let it take her where she didn't have to hurt anymore. You know what she told me?" "What?" "She said, 'Baby girl, giving up is easy. Anybody can quit. Quitting don't take no strength at all. But getting up when everything hurts, when nobody's watching, when there's no reward in sight, when the world has made it clear it don't care if you live or die, that's when you find out what you're made of. That's when you become strong enough to carry not just your own pain, but somebody else's too." Junwoo's eyes filled with tears. "She told me that strength isn't a feeling," Bracy continued. "It's not something you're born with. It's something you inherit from people who survived when survival seemed impossible. It's something that gets passed down through blood and bone and story. Her mother, my great-grandmother, was born into slavery, actual slavery. She was 11 years old when the Civil War ended. You understand what that means?" Junwoo nodded slowly. "It means my grandmother was raised by a woman who'd been owned, who'd been beaten, who'd watched her own children sold away from her like livestock, who'd survived things I can't even speak out loud because they're too evil for words." Bracy's voice hardened. "But she survived. She kept going. She had children after slavery ended, including my grandmother. And that strength, that impossible, inexplicable strength came down through the generations until it reached me." Junwoo stared at the photograph of Delilah Phillip, this woman he'd never met who'd survived impossible things. "Your grandmother was taking care of her children. She had a purpose. I don't have children. I don't have anyone who needs me to survive. So why should I? You have yourself. That's not enough. Then you haven't met yourself yet." Bracy took the photo back gently, tucked it back into her pocket where it lived like a talisman.
Junwoo, I didn't come here because I need money. I don't. My husband left me well provided for. Military pension, life insurance, investments. I don't have to work another day in my life if I don't want to. Then why do you? Because this work reminds me every single day what my grandmother taught me, that strength isn't about having it easy, it's about showing up when it's hard. It's about choosing to care when caring costs you something. She looked at him directly. My grandmother cleaned toilets so her kids could eat. Her mother picked cotton in fields that used to be worked by slaves just like her, worked them for wages that were barely better than slavery. Her mother, before that, Bracey's voice caught slightly, the only crack in her composure Junwoo had ever witnessed.
Her mother before that survived things that should have destroyed her. Chains, whips, rape, children sold away from her arms before they were old enough to remember her face. But she survived, and that survival wasn't pointless, it wasn't wasted, because it came down to me, and now I'm here, passing it on to you. Why me? Junwoo's voice cracked. Why do you care if I learn it? I'm just a job to you, just another disabled person who needs help. No, Bracey's voice was firm. You're a human being who's been tested and found wanting. And before you get angry, so have I. So is everyone. We're all found wanting until we choose to be something more. What does that mean? It means your wife left because she didn't have that strength. She didn't inherit it from anyone. Her parents probably loved her, but they didn't teach her what my grandmother taught me. They didn't show her that love isn't a feeling that stays when things get hard. It's a decision you make every morning, every hour, every minute when every instinct says to run. Bracey leaned forward. Hyeon failed the test, Junwoo. That's all. It doesn't make her evil. It just makes her weak. And weakness isn't a sin, but refusing to get stronger, that's a choice, and it's the wrong choice. And what about me? Am I weak too? You were. When you tried to reach those pills just now, you were choosing weakness. You were choosing to let her win, to let the accident win, to let all that pain win. Bracey's voice gentled. But here's what you don't understand yet. You've already survived the hardest part. You survived a wife abandoning you in your darkest hour. You survived the humiliation of her bringing another man into your home. You survived finding out she divorced you without even telling you. You're still breathing. That's not weakness starting to fail. That's strength starting to grow. It doesn't feel like strength. It never does at first. Strength feels like getting up when you want to die. It feels like taking another breath when breathing hurts. It feels like letting someone help you use the bathroom even though it humiliates you. It feels like surviving another day when dying seems easier. She stood up. My grandmother used to say that strength is like calluses. It only forms where there's been friction, where there's been pain. The smooth parts of you never get strong, only the parts that hurt. She walked toward the door, then paused, looking back at Junwoo. You think you're weak because you can't walk, but Junwoo, walking isn't strength. Walking is just mechanics. Strength is surviving a wife who promised forever and delivered 3 months. Strength is letting someone like me see you at your worst and choosing to stay alive anyway. Strength is crying and raging and wanting to die, but not doing it. That's strength. Everything else is just motion. She left the sleeping pills on the nightstand, but out of reach. When you're ready to take them for sleep instead of escape, let me know. I'll hand them to you. Until then, they stay where they are. Something changed in Junwoo after that night. It wasn't dramatic. There was no moment of sudden clarity where heavenly light shone down and he suddenly wanted to live. He didn't wake up the next morning filled with hope and purpose. If anything, he woke up feeling exactly the same, hollow, broken, abandoned. But he stopped asking to die. He stopped reaching for the pills. He took his medications when Bracey brought them, not because he cared about living, but because she'd said strength is choosing to get up even when you don't want to, and maybe that was something. He started pushing harder in physical therapy, not because he thought he'd walk again, he knew better now, but because Bracey had said the smooth parts never get strong, only the parts that hurt. So he hurt. He worked his upper body until his muscles screamed. He practiced transfer philosophers until sweat poured down his face. He chose pain over numbness because at least pain meant he was still alive. Most importantly, he started asking Bracy questions, not surface questions, deep ones, about her grandmother, about what it was like growing up black in Alabama, about the specific ways racism manifested, not the dramatic violence you see in movies, but the daily grinding humiliations, about moving to Korea 12 years ago and what it was like being a black woman in a country that maybe seen 50 black people in person total, about her husband's death, about surviving loneliness, about choosing to keep going when no one would blame you for stopping. Bracy answered everything honestly. She told him about her grandmother working for a white family who'd throw away perfectly good food rather than let the help take it home, about saving that food from the garbage and feeding it to her kids anyway, about the shame of that, about the strength required to swallow shame so your children could swallow food. She told him about watching her husband collapse in their kitchen in Fort Benning, Georgia, about performing CPR until the paramedics arrived, about how they worked on him for 40 minutes before calling it, about planning a funeral at 42 years old, about the loneliness that came after, so profound she'd sometimes wake up reaching for someone who wasn't there and wouldn't be there ever again. She told him about moving to Korea because she couldn't stay in Georgia, where every street corner held a memory, about learning Korean at 45, struggling with pronunciation, making embarrassing mistakes, about ajumas who'd stare at her hair, about drunk men who'd try to touch it without asking, about the particular isolation of being the only black woman in a traditional Korean neighborhood. "But you kept going," Jun-woo said one day in August during their afternoon session. They were going through his stretches, preventing the muscle contractures that paralyzed patients faced without movement. "I kept going. How?" "Same way my grandmother did. Same way her mother did. Same way every person who survives impossible things does." Bracy positioned his leg carefully, stretching the hamstring. "I woke up. I put one foot in front of the other. Metaphorically speaking, of course. I found work that mattered. I carried the strength forward. To me." Bracy smiled, rare and genuine, the kind of smile that transformed her entire face. "To whoever needs it. You're not special, Jun-woo." He actually laughed at that, a rusty sound he hadn't made in months. "Thanks. I mean, you're not the only person suffering. You're not the only person who got abandoned. You're not the only person lying in bed wondering why God hates them." She moved to his other leg. "But you are the person in front of me right now, and that makes you my focus. That makes teaching you my purpose, until you learn it, and then you'll pass it on to someone else, and that's how it works. I don't know if I have anything to pass on. You will. When you're ready, when someone needs what you'll have learned, you'll recognize them because they'll look like you do now, and you'll remember what I taught you, and you'll teach them. That's how strength survives, person to person, story to story. What if I'm not strong enough to teach it? Then you'll teach them anyway and become strong enough in the process. That's how it works, Jun-woo. You don't wait until you're strong enough. You act, and the action creates the strength. 6 months after Hyun left, Jun-woo's health began to decline. The doctors said it wasn't uncommon. Paralyzed patients faced constant challenges. Urinary tract infections from catheter use. Pressure sores that wouldn't heal despite meticulous care. Bracy's careful attention. The expensive wound care products Min-ho's insurance barely covered. Respiratory infections because lying down so much compromised lung function, blood clots that formed in immobile legs and could travel to the lungs or brain. He was hospitalized 3 times in 2 months. The first time for a pressure sore that developed into a systemic infection, sepsis that nearly killed him. The second time for pneumonia. The third time for a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot that traveled to his lung, causing chest pain so severe he thought he was dying, and maybe he was. Through it all, Bracy was there. Not just during her scheduled hours. She stayed overnight when he was afraid, pulling a chair beside his hospital bed, dozing fitfully so she could wake when he called out from nightmares. She held his hand during painful procedures, wound debridement, catheter changes, blood draws from veins that had been stuck too many times. She read to him when he couldn't sleep, bringing books from his apartment, the ones about architecture he used to love, the design magazines he used to devour. She became more than a caregiver. She became a witness to his suffering, and somehow that made it more bearable. Someone saw. Someone stayed. Min Ho pulled her aside one day at the hospital during the third admission. "You're doing too much. This isn't your job anymore. This is more than anyone should ask. You're here 16, 18 hours some days. When do you sleep? When do you live your own life?" "I sleep when he sleeps. I live my life by helping him live his." "But why? He's not your family. He's not your responsibility." "The agency will send someone else if you need a break. Hell, I'll pay for around-the-clock care if that's what it takes. But you can't keep burning yourself out like this." "I'm not burning out." "Bracy, nobody's asking me to do this, Min Ho." Her voice was firm, but not unkind. "I'm choosing it. There's a difference. When someone asks and you do it, that's obligation. When you choose and nobody's asking, that's purpose. What's the purpose of exhausting yourself for someone who's going to—" He stopped himself. "Going to die?" Bracy finished for him. "We're all going to die. That's not the question. The question is what we do with the time we have, and I'm choosing to spend mine making sure your brother doesn't die alone and afraid and believing he's worthless." Min Ho's eyes filled with tears. "He's lucky to have you." "No, he's unlucky to need me. But since he does, I'm going to show up. That's what the strong do. We carry the weak until they can carry themselves. And if they never can, we carry them all the way home. Home? To whatever comes next. To peace. To rest. To God, if you believe in that." Bracy looked through the window of Junwoo's hospital room, where he lay sleeping, his body frail, his breathing labored. Everyone deserves someone to carry them home. Your brother's going to have that, I promise you. By month 7, in October, Junwoo was back home, but bedbound permanently. The hospitalizations had taken too much from him. His body was giving up even as his mind fought to stay present. Hospice had been called. A nurse came twice a week to check his vitals, adjust his pain medications, monitor his decline. They brought a hospital bed with better controls, pressure-relieving mattress, rails that made care easier. They brought oxygen because his breathing was increasingly labored. They brought morphine for when the pain got too bad. The apartment that used to echo with Ha-Yoon's laughter, that briefly held Junwoo and Bracy's quiet conversations, now held only the sound of medical equipment and Bracy's quiet movements and the knowledge that time was running out. One evening in late October, as Bracy was adjusting Junwoo's pillows, he needed to be elevated now to help with breathing. He said, "I need to tell you something. I'm listening." She positioned the pillows carefully, making sure his head was supported, his neck comfortable. "I understand now what your grandmother meant about strength." He coughed, a wet, rattling sound that spoke of fluid in lungs that were slowly failing. "I used to think I was strong because I designed buildings, because I had a wife, because I could walk, because my body worked. But that wasn't strength. That was just life being easy. That was just having things go right." Bracy sat down beside the bed, giving him her full attention the way she always did. "Real strength is what you showed me," Junwoo continued, his voice weak but clear. "Showing up every day when nothing makes you except your own choice. Caring when you could walk away. Choosing to give when the world only knows how to take. Staying when everyone else leaves. Seeing worth in someone the world says is worthless." His eyes filled with tears. "You saved my life, Bracy. Not by keeping me alive. I know I'm dying. The doctors told me. I can feel it. You saved my life by teaching me what living means, what it really means. Not walking or working or being independent. Living means choosing to matter, choosing to carry strength forward, choosing to be part of a story bigger than yourself. You learned it. Bracy said quietly, her voice thick with emotion she rarely showed. That's the important part. Not everyone does. Will you tell me about your grandmother again, one more time? I want to... He coughed again. I want to remember her. I want to know I'm connected to that, to her story, to that strength. So Bracy pulled out the photograph, worn smooth from years of carrying, and told him everything again, about Delilah Phillip and her fierce love that kept 6 children alive when the world wanted them to die, about generations of black women who survived slavery, survived Jim Crow, survived poverty and racism and violence and loss, about strength that got passed down like a precious inheritance, blood to blood, story to story, about choosing to rise every morning even when everything said to stay down. Junwoo listened, his breathing growing slower, softer, his eyes fixed on the photograph of a woman he'd never met but who had somehow saved his life through her great-granddaughter's hands. That's what I want. I want to be part of that story. Not the man whose wife left him, not the man who got paralyzed, but the man who learned what strength means from a woman who carried it from her ancestors.
The man who chose to matter, even when everything said he was worthless. You already are part of it, Bracy said, and a tear slid down her cheek, the first Junwoo had ever seen from her. The moment you chose to keep living after Hyun left, you joined that lineage. The moment you let me teach you, you became part of the story. Different body, different circumstances, different pain, but same choice, same strength, same echo. Junwoo smiled, peaceful for the first time in months. Will you tell people about me when I'm gone? Will you keep the echo going? I promise. Thank you, Bracy, for everything, for showing up, for teaching me, for making my death mean something by teaching me how to live first. She held his hand as he drifted to sleep, and she stayed there all night, keeping watch, bearing witness, carrying him toward whatever came next. Junwoo died on a Tuesday morning in early November, 3 weeks before what would have been his 3rd wedding anniversary. He went peacefully, Bracy holding his hand, reading to him from a book about Frank Lloyd Wright, his architectural hero, the designer who believed buildings should serve life, should enhance life, should matter. She read about falling water and the Guggenheim and the philosophy of organic architecture until Junwoo's breathing slowed, stopped, and he was gone. His last words, whispered so quietly Bracy almost missed them, were, "Thank you for teaching me what matters." Min Ho arranged the funeral. It was small, held at a Buddhist temple because Junwoo's grandmother had been Buddhist and he'd always liked the philosophy of impermanence, of letting go, of accepting what is rather than clinging to what was. A few colleagues from Junwoo's old firm came, looking uncomfortable, offering condolences to Min Ho while avoiding looking at the wheelchair they'd set beside the funeral photograph as a reminder of how Junwoo had spent his final months. Some distant relatives, Min Ho's family, his wife Ji-won, their 2 children who were too young to understand but old enough to be solemn, and Bracy. She sat in the back, wearing a simple black dress and the silver cross necklace she always wore. She didn't cry during the service. She'd done her crying in private the night Junwoo died, sitting in his empty apartment, holding his sketchbooks, letting herself feel everything she usually kept controlled. But here, in public, she was composed, dignified, strong. Hyun didn't come. No one expected her to. She'd sent flowers with a generic card, "My condolences on your loss," signed with just her name. No mention of the fact that her loss had been voluntary, chosen, 3 months before death made it permanent. After the service, in the parking lot, Min Ho approached Bracy. He looked exhausted, hollowed out, like grief had scraped away everything soft and left only bones. He handed her an envelope. "Junwoo left this for you. He wrote it during his last good week when he could still hold a pen, made me promise to give it to you after he died." Bracy took it with steady hands, though her heart trembled. She opened it carefully.
Inside was a check for far more than her services had cost. Jun-woo had sold some investments, liquidated everything he could without touching the apartment that would go to Min-ho, and a letter in Jun-woo's increasingly shaky handwriting. Dear Bracy, you tried to teach me about inherited strength, but you never told me what to do with it once I learned it, so I figured it out myself. You pass it on. This money isn't payment. You can't pay someone for saving your soul. This is seed money. Start something. Help someone else the way you helped me. Carry your grandmother's echo forward. Build something that will outlast both of us. I'm not afraid anymore. Not of dying, not of being forgotten, not of the fact that Hyun's out there living her life like I never existed. I'm not afraid because of you, because you taught me that dying isn't the end of strength, it's just the next person's turn to carry it. Tell people about your grandmother. Tell them about me if you want. Tell them about what real strength looks like. Keep the story going. That's how we survive death. Not by living forever, but by passing on something that does. Thank you for showing up every single day when my wife walked away. Thank you for teaching me that love is action, not feeling. Thank you for proving that strength isn't about what your body can do, it's about what your heart chooses to do. Thank you for carrying me until I was strong enough to let go. Your strength student, Jun-woo. P.S. Tell Hyun I forgive her if you ever see her, not because she deserves it, because carrying anger is exhausting, and I want to be light enough to float wherever I'm going next. Bracy read it twice, then carefully folded it and put it back in the envelope with the check. She looked up at Min-ho, who was watching her with wet eyes. He learned it, she said. He really learned it. Because you taught him. No, because his grandmother Delilah taught me, and I passed it on to him, and now he's passed it on through this. She held up the envelope. That's how it works. That's how strength survives. What will you do with it? Bracy looked out across the parking lot at the modern Seoul skyline, thinking about Alabama and slavery, and her grandmother scrubbing toilets, and Jun-woo learning to die with dignity, and all the strength that had been passed down through pain until it reached this moment. I'm going to build something, she said, something that keeps the echo going. 3 months after Jun-woo's death, on a cold February morning, Bracy stood in front of a small community center in Yeongdeung-po, a working-class neighborhood of Seoul, far from the gleaming towers of Gangnam. The sign above the door, in Korean and English, read, "The Delilah House, Support for Caregivers and Families of the Disabled." Min-ho had helped her set it up, navigating the Korean bureaucracy, finding the space, hiring the initial staff. Jun-woo's money had funded it. The check had been substantial, enough to get started, enough to run for 2 years if they were careful. But the vision was all Bracy's, inherited from her grandmother, passed through Jun-woo's sacrifice, now made real. Inside, the space was simple but warm. Comfortable chairs arranged in circles, a small kitchen for making tea and coffee, bulletin boards with resources, phone numbers, information about government programs and support groups. On one wall hung a large photograph of Delilah Phillip, enlarged and framed, her fierce eyes watching over the space. Beside it, a smaller frame held a photo of Jun-woo from before the accident, smiling, whole, and beneath it a plaque. Jun-woo Kim, architect, student of strength, 1989-2025. This afternoon was the center's first official support group meeting. Bracy had advertised in hospitals, rehabilitation centers, online forums for caregivers. She'd expected maybe 5 people, maybe 15 showed up. They filed in slowly, hesitantly, carrying the exhaustion of their lives like visible weight on their shoulders. Mostly women, wives, daughters, mothers, but a few men too. A husband caring for his wife with ALS, a son caring for his father with Alzheimer's, a sister caring for her brother with cerebral palsy. All of them looked like Bracy had felt 7 months ago when she'd first met Jun-woo, tired beyond words, running on empty, wondering how much longer they could carry the impossible weight they'd been given. They sat in the circle of chairs, avoiding eye contact, shrinking into themselves like people who'd learned to take up as little space as possible because all their space had to be given to someone else. Bracy stood before them, holding her grandmother's photograph, the original, worn smooth from decades of carrying. "My name is Bracy Phillip," she began, her voice filling the small room with warmth and certainty, "and this is my grandmother, Delilah Phillip. She taught me something I want to teach you. Strength isn't something you're born with. It's something you inherit from people who survived when survival seemed impossible. It's something that gets passed down person to person, story to story, generation to generation. And today, I'm passing it to you." She told them about Delilah, about raising 6 kids alone after being widowed in 1975, about working 3 jobs while everyone treated her like she was invisible, like her labor and her pain and her humanity didn't matter, about choosing to get up every morning even when every bone in her body screamed to stay down, about crying at night but singing hymns while scrubbing toilets because it reminded her she was human, not just a pair of hands. She told them about Delilah's mother, born into slavery, surviving things too evil to fully describe, about how that survival wasn't meaningless. It came down through the generations until it reached Bracy, until it reached this moment, until it reached them. Then she told them about June Woo, about a man whose wife abandoned him when he became paralyzed, about learning that his body's failure didn't mean his life was worthless, about discovering that strength isn't walking or independence or having it easy, it's choosing to matter when everything says you're a burden, about dying with dignity because someone chose to show up, chose to teach him, chose to see worth where others saw only damage. "We are all carrying impossible things," Bracy said, her voice strong and clear. "Every single person in this room is exhausted. You're all wondering if you can make it one more day. You're all wondering if what you're doing matters. You're all wondering if anyone sees how hard you're trying." A young woman in the front row started crying silently, tears streaming down her face. "And I'm here to tell you, yes, you can make it one more day. Yes, what you're doing matters more than you know. And yes, I see you. We all see you." Bracy's voice grew fierce. "The strength you need isn't somewhere outside you. It's not something you have to find or earn or deserve. It's already in your blood, passed down from people who survived worse. Your ancestors, whoever they were, wherever they came from, they survived impossible things so you could be here, so you could carry this impossible weight, so you could pass the strength forward." One of the women, young, Korean, maybe 30, raised her hand timidly. Bracy nodded at her. "My husband has early onset dementia," the woman said, her voice breaking. "He's 34. He doesn't remember who I am anymore. Sometimes he thinks I'm his mother. Sometimes he thinks I'm a stranger breaking into his house. He gets violent when he's confused. I have bruises." She stopped, swallowed hard. "Why should I keep caring for someone who doesn't even know who I am, who might never know again? What's the point?" Bracy walked over and knelt beside her chair, looking directly into her eyes. "Because that's when love becomes real, when it stops being about what you get back and becomes about what you choose to give, when there's no reward, no recognition, no reciprocation. That's when love becomes strong enough to change the world. That's the love that gets passed down. That's the love that becomes legend." She stood back up, addressed the whole room. "You think your situations are hopeless. You think no one understands. You think the world has forgotten you while you're busy caring for people the world has already dismissed. And you're right. The world doesn't understand. The world doesn't care about caregivers until it needs one. The world treats you like you're invisible." Bracy's voice rose. "But this woman," she held up her grandmother's photograph so everyone could see, "she was invisible too. Black woman in Alabama cleaning white people's toilets. Nobody saw her, nobody thanked her, nobody recognized what she was doing, but she did it anyway. And that invisible strength came down to me. And through me, it went to Junwoo. And through Junwoo's sacrifice, it's now coming to you." She let that settle. "You're not invisible to me. You're not forgotten. You're not doing this for nothing. You're carrying strength forward. You're part of an ancient lineage of people who survived impossible things. And one day, maybe not soon, maybe not in the way you expect, someone is going to need the strength you're building right now. And you'll pass it on, and the echo will continue. The room was silent, except for quiet crying from several people. An older man, maybe 60, spoke up. How do we do it? How do we keep going when we're this tired? Same way my grandmother did. Same way June Woo learned. Bracey's voice was gentle now. One day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 moment at a time. You don't need the strength to carry this burden for the rest of your life. You only need the strength to carry it right now. This moment. And when this moment passes, you'll find strength for the next one. That's the secret. You don't need all the strength at once. You just need enough for right now. And when right now is too much, someone asked, then you come here. You call someone. You ask for help. You rest. Bracey looked around the room. Strength isn't refusing to admit you need help. Strength is surviving long enough to ask for it. My grandmother took help when it was offered. June Woo let me help him. There's no shame in needing someone. The shame is in letting pride kill you. They talked for 2 hours. People shared their stories. The spouse with ALS, the parent with Alzheimer's, the child with disabilities, the sibling with mental illness. Each story different in details, but the same in exhaustion, the same in invisible suffering, the same in desperate need to know they mattered. Bracey listened to every story, witnessed every person, reminded them all that they were part of something bigger than their individual pain. They were carrying forward strength that had been passed down through countless generations of people who survived when survival seemed impossible. When the meeting ended, people lingered. They didn't want to leave. This was the first time in months, years for some, that anyone had truly seen them, had recognized their suffering as legitimate, had told them they were strong instead of just telling them to hang in there or stay positive or other platitudes that meant nothing. The young woman whose husband had dementia approached Bracey. Will you be here next week? Every week, Tuesday afternoons, same time. Can I bring my sister? She's caring for our father. She needs this. Bring anyone who needs it. That's why we're here. As people filed out into the cold February afternoon, slightly less burdened than when they'd arrived, Minho approached Bracey. He'd been sitting in the back, observing. He'd be proud, Minho said quietly. Junwoo, he'd be so proud of this. This is his legacy. His and your grandmother's. His and every person who ever chose strength over surrender. Bracey looked at the photograph of Delilah Phillips on the wall. The echo keeps going. The Delilah house had grown beyond anything Bracey had imagined. What started with 15 people became 20, then 30. They had to move to a larger space in the same neighborhood. They added more support groups, one for spouses specifically, one for adult children caring for aging parents, one for parents of disabled children, one for siblings. They started a respite care program where trained volunteers would come stay with the disabled person for a few hours so the caregiver could sleep, could shop, could remember what it felt like to exist outside the constant weight of responsibility. They partnered with hospitals to provide caregiver education. They lobbied the government for better support services. They created an emergency hotline for caregivers in crisis. Those moments at 3 a.m. when you're so exhausted you can't remember why you're doing this anymore. The Korean media noticed. A local news station did a story, then a national paper. Bracey became semi-famous, the American woman who came to Korea and built a community center dedicated to invisible people doing impossible work. Through it all, Bracey ran the center with the same quiet efficiency she'd brought to Junwoo's care. She hired staff, former caregivers who understood, who could witness without judgment. She trained volunteers. She fundraised. She showed up every day. One evening in August, a full year after Junwoo's death, as Bracey was locking up after the evening support group, her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Bracey? The voice was tentative, familiar in a way that made Bracey's stomach tighten. Who is this? It's It's Hyun. Bracy said nothing. She walked to her car, phone pressed to her ear, waiting. I heard about the center, about what you're doing. I saw the article in the Jungang Daily. I wanted to... Hyun's voice cracked. I wanted to apologize for leaving, for not being strong enough, for... Stop. Bracy's voice cut through, firm but not unkind. Why are you calling me, Hyun? What do you want? I need to know if you hate me. Bracy sat in her car, staring at her grandmother's photograph that she kept on her dashboard. I don't hate you. Really? Hope crept into Hyun's voice. Hate takes energy I don't have to spare. Hate means you still matter to me, and you don't. You're just a woman who failed a test. That's all. Bracy's voice was matter-of-fact. But I don't forgive you either. That's not my place. Junwoo forgave you. He told me so before he died. He said he understood you didn't have what it takes, and he pitied you for that. That's between you and whatever God you believe in. Is that all you wanted to say? No. Hyun's voice trembled. I wanted you to know that I regret it. Every day. I see his picture sometimes. Minho posts them online, memorial posts, and I remember what I did. I remember leaving him there, unable to move, and she broke down sobbing. I'm not a monster. I'm not. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't watch him die slowly. I couldn't be strong enough. I know. So you understand? Understanding and approval are different things, Hyun. Bracy started her car. I understand that you were weak, that you chose yourself over your vows, that you prioritized your comfort over his survival. I understand all of that, but understanding doesn't make it right. I thought you'd be angrier. I was. When it happened, when I found him lying in his own waste because you'd left him for 4 hours, when I saw what your abandonment did to him, yes, I was angry. Bracy pulled out of the parking lot. But Junwoo taught me something before he died. He said carrying anger is exhausting, and he wanted to be light enough to float wherever he was going. So I let it go. Not for you. For me. Should I feel guilty? Yes. Bracy's voice hardened. You should feel guilty every day for the rest of your life. Not because guilt will fix anything, it won't bring Junwoo back, won't undo the trauma you caused, but because guilt means you still have a conscience, means maybe you'll do better next time someone needs you, means maybe you're not completely beyond redemption. There won't be a next time. I'm married now. Sangwoo and I got married 6 months ago. We're happy. We're trying for a baby. Hyun paused. I'm going to be different this time. Better. Stronger. I hope so. And Bracy meant it, without warmth, but without cruelty. I genuinely hope you never face the test you failed with Junwoo. But Hyun, here's what you need to understand. Love tested is love revealed. You were tested and you failed. One day Sangwoo will be tested too. Maybe by illness, maybe by job loss, maybe by depression. Maybe by something else entirely. When that day comes, you'll find out if he's like you or like Junwoo. And if he's like you, if he leaves when things get hard, you'll finally understand what Junwoo felt when you walked away. That's cruel. That's truth. Bracy turned onto her street, and the truth is cruel sometimes, but it's still true. You'll either learn to be strong or you'll fail someone else. Those are your options. Choose wisely. I don't think I can be strong like you. You can. You just haven't been forced to yet. Strength isn't something you're born with. It's something you build in the moments when everything says to quit and you don't. You haven't built it yet because you've always had the option to quit. But one day you won't, and that's when you'll discover what you're made of. And if I'm not made of anything good, then you'll learn to be. Or you won't, and you'll live with that knowledge. Bracy pulled into her parking space. I have to go, Hyun. I have a support group in the morning. People who are choosing to be strong when everything tells them to quit. People who would never understand what you did, but who need to hear that choosing strength is possible, even when you don't think you have it. Good luck. I hope you never need the kind of strength I teach. Wait, will you tell people about me? About what I did? Bracy considered this. I tell Junwoo's story. That includes your choice to leave. But I don't tell it to shame you. I tell it to show what happens when someone fails the test, and what happens when someone else steps in and passes it. You're not the villain in the story, Hyun. You're just the person who wasn't strong enough, and that's a cautionary tale, not a condemnation. That's somehow worse than being hated. Yes, but it's honest, and honesty is what people need to hear. Bracy hung up before Hyun could respond. She sat in her car for a long moment, staring at her grandmother's photograph, thinking about strength and weakness and the thin line between them. Hyun wasn't evil. She was just weak, and weakness isn't a sin, it's just an absence of something that should be there. And that absence had cost Junwoo 7 months of his life feeling worthless and abandoned before Bracy arrived to teach him differently. But Junwoo had learned. He died strong, and that mattered more than Hyun's weakness ever could. A year and a half after Junwoo's death, Bracy stood in front of a room at the Delilah house with 23 people. The support group had grown, evolved, become a true community. But today was special. Today, one of her earliest members, the young woman whose husband had dementia, whose name was Se-yeon, had asked to speak. Se-yeon stood at the front of the room, nervous but determined. Her husband Ji-hoon sat beside her in a wheelchair, his eyes vacant, not recognizing her or anyone else. But she'd brought him anyway, because he was part of her story. "I want to tell you what Bracy taught me," Se-yeon began, her voice shaking but growing stronger. "A year and a half ago, I came here for the first time. I was ready to give up. I was ready to put Ji-hoon in a care facility and walk away and try to pretend our life together had never happened. I couldn't handle watching him forget me. I couldn't handle the violence when he got confused. I couldn't handle being invisible to the person I loved most." People nodded, recognizing their own stories. But Bracy told me something that changed everything. She said that love becomes real when it stops being about what you get back and becomes about what you choose to give. And I didn't understand that at first. I thought love was supposed to be reciprocal. I thought if I gave and got nothing back, that wasn't love. That was just suffering. Se-yeon looked at her husband, then back at the group. But I learned something over this past year. I learned that the love that gets remembered, the love that changes things, the love that makes you strong, that's the love you give when there's no reward. That's the love you choose when everything says to quit. She pulled out a piece of paper, her hands shaking. "I wrote something. I want to read it. My husband doesn't remember me, but I remember him. I remember the man who proposed on a bridge, who cried at our wedding, who wanted 3 children, who loved me enough to build a future. That man is gone. This man doesn't know my name. This man sometimes hits me when he's scared. This man will never thank me for staying. But I stay anyway, not because I'm a martyr, not because I'm weak, but because love isn't a feeling, it's a choice. And I choose to love the man he was by caring for the man he is. And that choice makes me stronger than I ever knew I could be." The room was silent except for quiet crying. Se-yeon folded the paper. Bracy's grandmother was a black woman in Alabama who survived impossible things. Junwoo was a man whose wife abandoned him, but who learned to die with dignity. And I'm a woman whose husband has forgotten her, but who chooses to remember him by showing up every day. We're all part of the same story. We're all carrying the same strength forward. And one day, someone else will need what we're learning, and we'll pass it on. She sat down, and the room erupted in quiet applause. Not loud or celebratory, but the kind of applause that says, "I see you, I witness you, you matter." After the meeting, Se-yeon approached Bracy. "Thank you for teaching me, for showing me that my suffering isn't meaningless." "It never was," Bracy said. "You just needed someone to help you see it. Will you tell my story like you tell Junwoo's? Will you pass it on? If you want me to." "I do, because maybe someone else is ready to give up on their spouse with dementia, and maybe hearing that I stayed, that I chose strength, will help them choose it too." Se-yeon smiled through tears. "That's how it works, right? Person to person, story to story. That's exactly how it works. That night, Bracy sat in her small apartment staring at the framed photograph of her grandmother on the wall beside Junwoo's letter. She thought about Delilah Phillip, born in 1935, died in 2003, who survived impossible things and passed strength down through generations until it reached this moment, this place, these people. She thought about Junwoo, who died believing he mattered because someone had taught him that mattering isn't about what your body can do, it's about the choices your heart makes. She thought about Seon and the 22 other people in tonight's support group, each carrying impossible burdens, each choosing strength over surrender, each part of an ancient lineage they didn't even know they'd joined. And she thought about Hyun, somewhere in Seoul, living a comfortable life with a new husband, maybe pregnant with the child she'd once planned to have with Junwoo, probably not thinking about the man she'd abandoned, except when guilt scratched at her door late at night. The story didn't have an ending, not a clean one. Junwoo was dead, his body cremated, his ashes scattered on a mountain he'd love to hike before the accident, his life reduced to a photograph on a wall, and a letter in a frame, and a legacy he'd never see. Hyun was alive and thriving, unpunished except by her own conscience, and even that was questionable. She'd moved on completely, rebuilt her life on the ruins of her marriage, and would probably never face consequences for her abandonment beyond occasional guilt. Seon was exhausted, her husband deteriorating, her youth slipping away while she cared for someone who didn't know she existed. No reward waiting, no happy ending promised, just the daily choice to show up and the knowledge that she was building strength others would need someday. And Bracy was here, carrying the weight of her grandmother's legacy, Junwoo's sacrifice, and the suffering of everyone who walked through the Delilah house doors. Not because it was easy, not because it felt good, but because it was what her grandmother had taught her, and what Junwoo had learned, and what needed to be done. Some people would call that unfair. Some would say Hyun should have been punished more. Some would say Junwoo deserved to be healed, deserved to walk again, deserved to find love that stayed. Some would say So-yeon deserved better than a husband who forgot her. Some would say Bracy deserved rest, but Bracy knew better than to expect fairness. Life wasn't about fairness. Life was about who showed up, who chose strength when weakness was easier, who carried the echo forward when everyone else let it die. She opened her laptop and started typing. A blog post for the Delilah House website, the weekly reflection she'd started writing, stories about strength and survival and choice. This week's title, The Echo Never Dies. She wrote about her grandmother, about Junwoo, about So-yeon, about the ancient lineage of people who survived impossible things and passed their strength down through generations, about how strength isn't fair or rewarded or even recognized most of the time, about how it survives anyway. She wrote, "Some of you are reading this because you're exhausted, because you're caring for someone who will never thank you, because you're wondering if anyone sees how hard you're trying, because you're questioning whether what you're doing matters. I see you. What you're doing matters more than you know. You're carrying strength forward. You're part of a story thousands of years old. You're building something that will outlast you, not because you'll be remembered or rewarded, but because someone, someday, will need the strength you're building right now. And you'll pass it on, and they'll pass it on, and the echo will continue. My grandmother survived impossible things. Junwoo survived abandonment and learned to die with dignity. So-yeon is surviving a husband who forgot her. You're surviving whatever impossible burden you're carrying, and that survival isn't meaningless. It's the whole point. The echo doesn't guarantee justice. It doesn't promise happy endings. It doesn't ensure that good people are rewarded or bad people are punished. It only promises one thing: strength survives. Person to person, story to story, generation to generation. As long as someone chooses to carry it forward, the echo never dies. Get up tomorrow. Take one more breath. Make one more choice to matter. That's all strength is. That's all it's ever been. The echo continues through you. She posted it, closed her laptop, and looked at the photograph of her grandmother one more time. "Thank you," she whispered, "for teaching me, for surviving so I could survive, for passing it on." Tomorrow she would wake up. She would open the Delilah House. She would teach others what her grandmother taught her, what Jun Woo learned, what So Yan was learning. She would bear witness to suffering and remind people they weren't alone. She would carry the strength forward. And somewhere in Seoul, Hyun would wake up too, in a comfortable bed next to a new husband, maybe feeling guilt, maybe not, living the life she chose when she walked away. Maybe one day she'd be tested again. Maybe one day she'd learn what strength means. Or maybe she wouldn't. It didn't matter. The echo didn't need Hyun to continue. It only needed people like Delilah and Bracy and Jun Woo and So Yan. People who chose strength over surrender, who showed up when showing up was hard, who passed the echo forward even when no one was watching. The story doesn't end with revenge. It doesn't end with reconciliation. It doesn't end with Hyun getting what she deserves, or Jun Woo getting what he wanted, or some cosmic justice restoring balance to the universe. Just with Bracy, carrying forward the strength her grandmother gave her, teaching others to do the same, building something that will outlast them all. It ends with the promise that as long as someone chooses to carry it forward, the echo never dies. And that's enough. This is where the story ends. Not with revenge, not with reconciliation, not with Hyun getting what she deserves, or Jun Woo getting what he wanted, or some cosmic justice restoring balance to the universe. Just with Bracy, carrying forward the strength her grandmother gave her, teaching others to do the same, building something that will outlast them all. Just with So Yan, showing up every day for a husband who doesn't remember her, choosing strength over surrender. Just with 23 people in a support group in Yangdangpo, learning that their invisible suffering matters, that their exhaustion is seen, that they're part of something bigger than their individual pain. Real strength doesn't look like movies tell us it does. It doesn't look like dramatic victories, or villains getting punished, or heroes overcoming impossible odds through sheer willpower. Real strength looks like getting up when everything says to stay down. It looks like showing up when no one's watching. It looks like caring when caring costs you everything and gives you nothing back. It looks like choosing to matter when the world says you're worthless. If this story moved you, if you understand now what real strength looks like, if you've ever been the one carrying an impossible burden while everyone else looked away, do 3 things. First, subscribe to Love and Tension. We tell stories that don't give easy answers because life doesn't give easy answers. We tell stories about real people making impossible choices. We tell stories that matter. Second, comment below. Who in your life taught you what strength means? Who showed you that love is action, not feeling? Who survived impossible things and passed their strength down to you? Tell their name. Honor their echo. Let's build a memorial of strength, person by person, story by story. Third, and this is the most important one, tomorrow morning, when you wake up exhausted and overwhelmed and wondering if you can survive one more day of whatever impossible burden you're carrying, get up anyway. Take one more breath. Make one more choice to matter. That's all strength is. That's all it's ever been. Because the echo doesn't die when one person falls. It continues through the next person who chooses to carry it forward. It continues through you. I'm waiting to read your stories. I'm waiting to witness your strength. I'm waiting to be part of the echo that carries us all forward. Until next time, keep carrying the strength forward. The echo never dies.